Massey Ferguson ruled the fields of the 1960s, building tractors that farmers still talk about more than half a century later. These weren't just machines, they were loyal partners through long days, tough seasons, and endless acres. From small but mighty workhorses to thunderous diesel giants, we're counting down the 10 best Massey Ferguson tractors of the 1960s, and one of them is so rare, most people have never even seen it in person. Let's dig into the decade that made Massey Ferguson a legend. Number 1. Massey Ferguson 35X. The Massey Ferguson 35X wasn't just another tractor in the company's lineup. It was a swan song for an entire era of agricultural engineering philosophy that had started with Harry Ferguson's original TE20 Little Grey Fergie back in the late 1940s. Built between 1962 and 1964 at Massey Ferguson's famous Banner Lane factory in Coventry, England, the 35X was essentially the perfected form of the MF35, which itself had been a massive global success. Farmers at the time recognized it instantly by its practical compact design, curved bonnet, and unmistakable red and gray livery. But it wasn't just looks. The 35X represented meaningful mechanical progress. Under its hood, the 35X housed the Perkins AD 3.152 diesel engine, a 3-cylinder workhorse capable of producing around 44 horsepower. This might sound modest compared to today's tractors, but in the early 1960s it was more than enough for the kind of work the average mixed or small farm needed to do: plowing, mowing, cultivating, hauling trailers, or running belt-driven equipment. Farmers appreciated that the 35X's engine was frugal on fuel, yet had plenty of torque to dig into heavier soils without stalling. The improved throttle response over earlier models made it smoother to operate, and for operators used to the slower revving petrol and TVO engines of the past, it felt like a leap forward. Another reason the 35X gained a loyal following was its gearbox. Massey Ferguson offered configurations that made it easy for operators to select the right gear for the job, keeping the engine in its sweet spot for power while adapting to different workloads, whether slow, steady pulling for plowing or faster runs for hay mowing. This gearbox, paired with Ferguson's revolutionary hydraulic draft control system, meant the 35X could automatically adjust the depth of implements like plows based on soil resistance, a feature farmers once thought of as near miraculous. For day-to-day life on the farm, the 35X was a master of adaptability. Its relatively lightweight and short wheelbase allowed it to work in smaller fields, navigate tight farmyards, and even pull trailers on rural lanes without difficulty. Yet it had enough strength to perform the heavy lifting when needed. Farmers liked that they could hitch it to a mower in the morning, swap to a baler in the afternoon, and then use it for transporting hay bales in the evening, all without feeling like they were underpowered. By 1964, when production of the 35X ended, Massey Ferguson was shifting toward the new 100 series tractors, which would bring bigger, more modern designs. But for many, the 35X represented the end of the human-sized tractor machines that were big enough to do real work but still felt approachable and mechanical in a way that farmers could maintain themselves. Today, surviving examples are prized by collectors not just because they're durable and easy to restore, but because they carry the spirit of a bygone era in farming. For some, a 35X isn't just a tractor, it's a living reminder of when farming was simpler, more personal, and a little more hands-on. Number 2. Massey Ferguson 65. When the Massey Ferguson 65 rolled onto farms in 1958, it filled a gap that many farmers had been waiting for, a tractor that was larger and more powerful than the MF35, but still versatile enough for mixed farm work. The MF65, which stayed in production until 1964, quickly earned its reputation as a sweet spot machine, big enough for heavier field work, small enough to still be handy around the yard. In terms of power, the MF65 sat comfortably in the 50-54 horsepower range, depending on whether you opted for the Continental gasoline engine or the now legendary Perkins diesel. The Perkins version, in particular, became a favorite for its sheer pulling ability and remarkable fuel economy, a key factor in the days before fuel prices were low enough to ignore. On larger farms, the MF65 was often used as the primary tillage tractor, pulling 2 or 3 bottom plows with ease, while smaller farms sometimes relied on it as their big tractor to handle everything from planting to harvesting. One of the MF65's great strengths was its chassis and hydraulic capacity. The heavier frame gave it stability in the field, making it less prone to wheel slip when pulling through stubborn soils. The stronger hydraulics also meant it could handle more substantial implements than the MF-35, including heavier cultivators, front loaders, and larger mowers. The Ferguson draft control system, still a marvel at the time, remained a core feature, allowing the tractor to automatically adjust implement depth based on soil resistance. This not only improved efficiency, but reduced strain on both the tractor and the operator. Speaking of the operator, comfort was another area where the MF-65 scored points. While far from the climate-controlled cabs of modern tractors, it had a spacious open operator platform with well-positioned controls, a relatively comfortable seat, and good visibility. For long working days during harvest or planting, these details made a difference. Farmers could spend 10–12 hours in the seat without feeling completely worn down by the end of the day. The MF-65 also excelled in versatility. With live PTO and the ability to switch between fieldwork and PTO-driven equipment with ease, it was equally at home baling hay, mowing pastures, or running a grain auger. In fact, many farmers found themselves using the MF-65 almost year-round, tilling in the spring, planting in early summer, haymaking through mid-year, and then hauling crops and doing maintenance work through autumn and winter. When production ended in 1964, the MF-65 was succeeded by the MF-165 in the new 100 series. But for many who had used one, the MF-65 remained a high point in tractor design. Powerful but not excessive, dependable but not overcomplicated, and adaptable enough to be the heart of any farming operation. Even decades later, it's not uncommon to see an MF-65 still in use. Its paint faded, but its engine still pulling as strongly as the day it left the factory. A testament to Massey Ferguson's engineering during a golden age of tractor manufacturing. Number 3. Massey Ferguson Super 90. When the Massey Ferguson Super 90 rolled off the production line in 1961, it was a clear signal that the company was moving into a new horsepower arena. Up until then, Massey Ferguson had been known mainly for its small and medium-sized tractors, machines like the MF-35 and MF-65 that balanced versatility with efficiency. But farming was changing rapidly in the early 1900s. Farms were getting larger, implements were getting wider, and farmers needed tractors that could cover more acres in less time. The Super 90 was Massey Ferguson's answer to that demand. Positioned above the MF-65 in the lineup, the Super 90 came equipped with the Perkins A6354 diesel engine, a big six-cylinder workhorse capable of delivering around 80 horsepower. For a row crop tractor of the era, that was serious muscle. This extra power translated directly into the ability to pull heavier and wider implements, from 4 or 5 bottom plows to large tandem disc harrows. On big acreage grain farms, the Super 90 could accomplish in a day what smaller tractors would need much longer to do, freeing up valuable time during tight planting and harvest windows. Its design reflected its intended role as a heavy-duty performer. The Super 90 had a more substantial frame than the MF-65, with heavier castings, stronger axles, and larger rear wheels for better traction. The wheelbase was extended for stability, especially when pulling large implements or working in challenging soil conditions. Yet, despite its bulk, it was still designed with row crop versatility in mind. Adjustable front axle track widths meant it could be adapted for cultivating and other row crop tasks, making it more than just a pure tillage tractor. Mechanically, the Super 90 kept to a philosophy of rugged simplicity. The transmission and final drives were built to take sustained high-load work without failure, and the tractor's open mechanical layout meant that farmers could perform most repairs themselves with basic tools. In an era when downtime during planting or harvest could be catastrophic, that kind of serviceability was a major selling point. Operators who used the Super 90 often talk about its sheer pulling confidence. It didn't just get the job done, it did it with an ease that made it feel like there was power in reserve. This was especially valuable in heavy prairie soils, where smaller tractors would start to bog down or lose traction. The hydraulics were also stronger, meaning it could lift and control larger, heavier implements without strain. While the Super 90 only remained in production until 1965, it played an important transitional role for Massey Ferguson. It bridged the gap between the more modest MF-65 and the high-horsepower machines of the upcoming 100 series, It proved that Massey Ferguson could compete in the big league power category without losing its trademark reliability and farmer-friendly design. Today, restored examples of the Super 90 are admired not just for their imposing presence but also for what they represented, a bold step into the modern age of high-powered farming. Number 4. Massey Ferguson 98. If the Super 90 was Massey Ferguson's introduction to the higher horsepower class, the MF98 was its wild card. A tractor so distinctive in sound, feel, and performance that it still turns heads more than 60 years later. Produced in limited numbers between 1960 and 1962, the MF98 was a product of an unusual collaboration between two major North American tractor makers, Massey Ferguson and Oliver. The MF98's chassis and running gear was sourced from the Oliver 990, a proven platform known for its strength and durability. Massey Ferguson added its own styling cues, including the familiar red and silver paint scheme, badging and trim details, making it visually consistent with the rest of the MF lineup. But the real star of the show lived under the hood, a Detroit diesel 453 two-stroke engine. This engine was unlike anything most Massey Ferguson customers had ever experienced. Rated at around 98 horsepower, the 453 was a high-revving two-cycle diesel with a distinctive, almost ear-splitting scream under load. In an era when most farm diesels chugged along at lower RPMs with a steady thump, the Detroit diesel's sharp, high-pitched exhaust note was unmistakable and unforgettable. Farmers either loved it or hated it, but no one ignored it. The MF98's performance matched its soundtrack. With immense torque for its size, it was tailor-made for the wide-open spaces of wheatland farming where straight-line pulling power was king. It excelled at pulling heavy plows, large harrows, and big grain drills across mile-long fields. Its standard tread design, wide front axle, non-adjustable, meant it wasn't intended for tight row crop maneuvering, but out on the open prairie, it was in its element. Farmers who ran these machines often recall how effortlessly they handled heavy work. The Detroit diesel's willingness to rev meant it could maintain pulling speed even under sudden load changes, which made it well suited for tough soils or hilly terrain. However, the same high-revving nature and mechanical complexity that gave it its power also meant it required attentive maintenance, especially keeping its oil and cooling systems in top condition. Because it was built in small numbers and only for a short production window, the MF98 never became a common sight on farms. Part of this was due to its niche appeal. It was overkill for smaller farms, and its sound alone could be polarizing. But for the farmers who needed raw, unfiltered horsepower and had the acreage to justify it, the MF98 was a marvel. Today, the MF98 is one of the most sought-after Massey Ferguson tractors among collectors. Its rarity, its unique cross-brand heritage, and of course that unforgettable Detroit diesel scream make it a conversation piece at any tractor show. It stands as a reminder of a brief but fascinating moment in Massey Ferguson's history, when the company wasn't afraid to experiment and deliver something truly different to the farming world. Number 5. Massey Ferguson 135. If there is one model that truly captured the heart of farmers across the globe, it is the Massey Ferguson 135. Introduced in 1964 as part of the brand new 100 series, the MF135 quickly rose to legendary status, not just as a popular tractor of its time, but as one of the most enduring and beloved machines in agricultural history. From the rolling fields of England to the sun-baked farms of Africa, from small homesteads in North America to rice paddies in Asia, the 135 earned a reputation for being the tractor you could always count on. At its core was the Perkins AD 3.152 diesel engine, a three-cylinder powerhouse delivering around 45 horsepower. While that figure might seem modest by modern standards, in the mid-1960s it was more than enough for the typical small to medium-sized farm. More importantly, it was delivered in a way that farmers appreciated: smooth, fuel-efficient, and with enough torque to tackle tough jobs without stalling or laboring excessively. For those who preferred gasoline, versions were available with Continental or Perkins petrol engines, but the diesel quickly became the most popular due to its longevity and low running costs. What truly set the 135 apart was its balance of size, weight, and versatility. Compact enough to maneuver easily in tight farmyards or orchards, yet heavy enough to grip the soil when pulling a plow, it could move seamlessly from one job to another. In spring, it might be out turning the soil with a 2 or 3 bottom plow. By summer, it could be mowing hayfields or raking windrows. Come autumn, it could be powering a baler or pulling a loaded trailer of grain to storage. The robust Ferguson 3-point hitch system and strong hydraulics meant that changing implements was quick and straightforward, and the tractor could handle a remarkable variety of attachments. Part of the MF135's global success was its adaptability. Massey Ferguson built it in multiple factories around the world, including the UK, France, and the United States, and tailored versions for local markets. In some regions, the tractor was sold with features like canvas sunshades for hot climates, different tire options for paddy fields, or simplified specifications to keep costs down. This flexibility allowed it to become a truly global workhorse, affordable, repairable, and dependable regardless of geography. Durability was another hallmark of the 135. Many tractors of this model, built more than half a century ago, are still in daily service, starting up each morning to tend fields, haul loads, or mow grass. Their mechanical simplicity means they can be kept running with basic tools and a bit of mechanical know-how, which is why they remain popular with both farmers and vintage tractor enthusiasts. For countless rural families, the MF135 was more than just a machine. It was part of the household economy, a reliable partner in the endless cycle of planting and harvest. It helped pay for mortgages, raise children, and keep farms afloat in tough years. Even today, at vintage tractor rallies, the 135 draws warm smiles and knowing nods because for many, it was the tractor that got them through. Number 6. Massey Ferguson 165. Launched alongside the MF135 as part of the same groundbreaking 100 series, the Massey Ferguson 165 took everything farmers loved about the 135 and scaled it up for heavier, more demanding work. Where the 135 was the agile all-rounder, the 165 was the dependable muscle, built to handle bigger implements, cover more acres, and keep pace with the growing mechanization of agriculture during the late 1960s. Power came from a range of engines, but the most celebrated were the Perkins A4.212 and A4.236 diesels, delivering between 50 and 58 horsepower depending on the version. These 4-cylinder diesels provided a noticeable step up in torque over the smaller 3-cylinder engines, allowing the 165 to pull larger plows, operate heavier tillage equipment, and run power-hungry implements without strain. Gasoline and LP gas versions were also offered in some markets, but again, diesel proved the favorite for its efficiency and long service life. One of the strengths of the MF165 was its versatility. It had the size and stability for field-scale work, tilling large plots, pulling grain drills, running forage harvesters, yet it wasn't so large that it became impractical for yard work, livestock chores, or smaller fields. The tractor could be ordered with either live or independent PTO, giving farmers more control over PTO-driven implements like balers and mowers. Independent PTO in particular allowed implements to keep running even when the tractor stopped moving, a huge benefit during baling or when working with rotary mowers. Hydraulic performance was another strong point. The 165's Ferguson 3-point linkage system could lift heavier implements than the 135, opening the door to a wider range of modern machinery. This hydraulic strength, combined with the tractor's well-balanced chassis, made it especially effective for loader work, where stability and control were essential. Comfort and ergonomics also saw improvements over earlier Massey Ferguson designs. The 165 featured a more spacious operator platform, with better seating and control placement, making long days in the field less fatiguing. While these comfort upgrades might seem minor, for a farmer spending 10 or 12 hours a day in the seat during harvest, they made a real difference. Like the 135, the 165 enjoyed a long production run from 1964 to 1975, a testament to its enduring popularity. Its combination of manageable size, serious pulling ability, and mechanical reliability meant that it was often the main workhorse on mixed farms, capable of doing everything from planting crops to hauling silage wagons. Even today, many remain in use on smaller farms, and they are prized by collectors who value their blend of classic styling and practical capability. The MF165 earned its mid-range masterpiece title by being exactly what many farmers needed: big enough for the tough jobs, small enough for the daily ones, and built with the kind of rugged quality that meant it would be around for decades. Number 7. Massey Ferguson 175. By the second half of the 1960s, farms across much of the world were getting bigger, implements were getting wider, and the need for more horsepower was becoming obvious. The Massey Ferguson 175 stepped into this evolving agricultural landscape as the ideal next step for farmers who had outgrown their mid-sized machines but weren't ready or didn't need to invest in the largest, most expensive tractors on the market. Launched toward the latter part of the decade, the MF175 slotted above the MF165 in the lineup, delivering between 63 and 70 horsepower depending on the specific model and market. That extra power made a significant difference. Suddenly, a farmer could run larger mower conditioners, operate high-capacity square balers, or pull 4 and even 5 bottom plows in lighter soils, all without overtaxing the machine. This capability meant fewer passes in the field, faster workdays, and a noticeable boost in productivity. The MF175 owed much of its performance to Perkins diesel engines, particularly the A4.236 and A4.248, which were celebrated for their durability, torque, and fuel economy. These four-cylinder diesels had the muscle to maintain steady pulling power through challenging conditions, whether that meant climbing gentle slopes with a loaded hay wagon or working through heavy clay soils during spring tillage. Farmers appreciated how the engine delivered its power smoothly, without sudden surges or drop-offs, which made it easier to keep implements working efficiently. In haymaking operations, the 175 earned a reputation as a near-perfect match for the demands of cutting, conditioning, and baling. Its weight and stability kept it planted on uneven ground, while its PTO output was more than capable of running high-demand equipment. In row crop or small grain operations, the 175 could serve as the primary tillage tractor, pulling wide discs or cultivating large acreage without complaint. The operator's station on the MF175 reflected Massey Ferguson's growing attention to comfort and ergonomics during the late 1960s. While it wasn't a luxury tractor by today's standards, the 175 offered a relatively open and uncluttered platform, well-positioned controls, and a seat that provided better support for long working hours. These small but meaningful improvements made a difference when operators spent entire days in the field. For many farms, the MF175 represented the perfect balance, powerful enough to open new possibilities for equipment size and efficiency, yet still affordable, maneuverable, and easy to maintain. This sweet spot ensured its popularity in mixed farming operations, where the same tractor might one day be planting crops and the next hauling feed or silage. The fact that many MF175s are still in daily use today, over half a century later, speaks volumes about the model's build quality and staying power. Number 8. Massey Ferguson 1080. By the mid-1960s, large-scale farming was entering a new era. The shift toward high-acreage grain operations, expanded irrigation, and heavier tillage equipment meant that the demand for tractors with genuine high horsepower was growing rapidly. Massey Ferguson answered that call in 1967 with the introduction of the MF1080, a machine that marked the brand's bold move into the upper end of the 100 series. The MF1080 was no half measure. At around 92 horsepower, courtesy of its robust Perkins 354 cubic inch 6-cylinder diesel engine, it had the muscle to take on the toughest jobs a farmer could throw at it. This engine was a proven workhorse in its own right, delivering a combination of high torque at low RPMs, excellent fuel efficiency, and the kind of mechanical simplicity that made field repairs possible without extensive downtime. For farmers who needed a tractor that could keep up with ever larger plows, discs, and cultivators, the 1080 was a revelation. In tillage work, the MF1080 could handle deep plowing with ease, pulling heavy multi-bottom plows through stubborn soils that would have slowed smaller tractors to a crawl. Its stability and weight distribution meant it could also manage large tandem or offset discs without excessive wheel slip, turning heavy ground into a fine seedbed in fewer passes. This made it a prime choice for grain farmers in regions like the American Midwest, Canadian prairies, and Australia's wheat belt, places where covering large areas quickly was critical to profitability. The tractor's size and frame strength also opened up new possibilities in PTO-driven work. The MF1080 could power large forage harvesters, high-capacity augers, and grain vacuums with ease, tasks that were increasingly important in modernizing farming systems. Even with its size and power, Massey Ferguson ensured the 1080 retained the user-friendly ergonomics of its smaller siblings. Controls were logically placed, visibility from the operator's seat was good, and the overall layout was familiar to those who had used other 100 series models. While it was a high-horsepower machine, the 1080 wasn't designed to be a lumbering giant. Farmers found it surprisingly maneuverable for its class, making it possible to navigate around field obstacles and farmyards without excessive difficulty. This balance of power and agility made it a favorite for those transitioning from mid-sized tractors but unwilling to compromise on versatility. Production of the MF 1080 continued until 1972, after which newer, even more powerful models began to take its place. Yet its legacy is secure. It proved that Massey Ferguson could compete head-to-head in the high-horsepower segment, offering a machine that was both brawny and dependable. Today, well-maintained MF 1080s are prized by collectors and still see active service on farms that appreciate their raw pulling ability and timeless engineering. Number 9. Massey Ferguson 1100. The Massey Ferguson 1100 was a landmark model, marking the company's entry into the large row crop tractor market with an entirely in-house design. With up to 95 horsepower, it could pull 5 or 6 bottom plows and handle heavy field cultivators. Its high seating position gave operators excellent visibility, and the robust build quality made it capable of handling years of heavy work. The 1100 was also offered in wheatland versions for farmers in open prairie regions, where wide front axles and large tires improved traction and stability. It was a statement tractor for MF, showing they could compete directly with the biggest names in high-horsepower row crop tractors. Even today, a well-maintained 1100 feels like a serious piece of machinery. Number 10. Massey Ferguson 1130. The MF 1130 was the crown jewel of Massey Ferguson's 1960s lineup, delivering around 120 horsepower from its Perkins 6-cylinder diesel engine. It was built for big-acre farmers who needed to move a lot of soil or crop in a short time. With its long wheelbase, heavy frame, and excellent traction, the 1130 excelled in primary tillage, pulling large plows and discs with authority. Its PTO capability meant it could also handle the largest balers, forage harvesters, and augers of the time. In many ways, the 1130 represented the peak of pre-electronic tractor engineering, relying on mechanical simplicity and raw power rather than complex systems. For collectors and vintage farming enthusiasts, the 1130 remains a symbol of when Massey Ferguson was at the top of its game in the horsepower race of the late 1960s. And there you have it. 10 iron legends from the 1960s that proved Massey Ferguson could do it all. Strength, reliability, and timeless design. Whether you grew up driving one, still have one working in the shed, or dream of restoring one someday, these tractors are more than machines. They're part of farming history. Which model was your favorite? Or did we miss one you think should have made the list? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one, and if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell, because we've got plenty more vintage tractor history coming your way. Until next time, keep those engines running and those wheels turning.